Hello, I'm going to talk about adding fat to your meals because a lot of people want to do a higher fat than protein ratio. And if you don't know what the fat to protein ratio is, check out my video on fat to protein ratio. I also did a really fun, I think pretty darn informative talk with the steak and butter gal on the fat to protein ratio. So check out her video that she did with me because that was, I think, full of really helpful information as well. If people are wanting more fat than protein, you have to be intentional. Even ribeye steak is only a 1-to-1 fat to protein ratio in grams. I work with grams, not percentages. When I say gram, I mean macronutrient grams, not grams by weight. So if a ribeye steak has 6 ounces of ribeye has 26 grams of protein, it might have 26 grams of fat, macronutrient grams. If someone is wanting higher fat than protein, you can't just eat ribeye. You're getting just a 1-to-1. You're going to need to intentionally add liberal amounts of fat, which is not natural for a lot of people. We've been conditioned to think that fat is going to clog our arteries, or it's dangerous, or it's a good way to gain weight. Yes, it can cause weight gain, but all things should be in context. So we need saturated fat, and sometimes adding more fat can actually help weight loss, which seems counterintuitive for a lot of people. But if you've been in this community for a while, then hopefully fat is your friend, the right types of fat. Now, how do you bump up that fat to protein ratio? For me, I really prefer lamb. Lamb from Billy Doe Meats is what I healed eating. Lamb, salt, and water. I did that for an entire year. I did not reintroduce beef for actually 2.5, 3 years, where I was like eating a decent amount. But even to this day, I don't eat a lot of beef. I eat lamb, bison, goat, veal, salmon, venison, and then I'll eat beef. You know, if I go out to eat to a Brazilian steakhouse, yeah, I'm eating a lot of beef. And I do great with it. But getting that higher fat ratio, lamb chops from Billy Doe Meats, lamb loins, boneless lamb sirloin, those 3 cuts are very fatty. The chops, you don't even have to add fat. It's like a 2-to-1 fat to protein ratio just on the chop because they are untrimmed. These lamb chops have a fat cap that is literally like this thick. And it's so thick that when I make them, sometimes I will slice off the fat and let that cook longer than the meat, just because I like it a little bit more crispy. And I don't want to overcook the meat. But those are incredibly delicious and a great way to get fat without having to, have a substituted fat where you're adding it on top of the meat that you're cooking. But if that's what you want to do, then my favorite sources are butter. Now, if you're sensitive to dairy, I do think butter is the exception. Generally, the inflammatory part of dairy is the casein content, which is the protein. And so butter doesn't really have any of that. It's just fat. Now, some people are lactose intolerant. Some people just don't tolerate butter fat or milk fat. You do you. I was sensitive to butter. When I first reintroduced it, I got arthritic symptoms. I had body aches, basically, if I ate it for 3 days in a row. So I actually backed off for an additional 6 months. So I did not eat butter for 1.5 years into my healing journey. However, I would say that I was much more sensitive than a lot of people, most people. Many people do great with butter, and I do consider it a superfood, and I eat butter every single day now. Butter is a great source of added fat, and it is pretty affordable. You don't have to get cultured butter. You can buy cheap butter. Actually, my husband, Tyler, prefers generic butter. He prefers just stick butter from Food Lion. I prefer the Costco butter in the green package or Kerrygold salted. Favorite butter is Truly, which you can find at Whole Foods. So yeah, I really like butter. Do whatever butter works for you. You can do just generic stick butter as long as it's real butter and not margarine, or it doesn't have anything mixed into it. Other sources of fat, suet. So suet is not many people's favorite source of fat because it is like eating a candle. It's very waxy in texture. Now, it doesn't have a strong flavor. It's very mild, but it's waxy. I don't know how else to describe it. Some people say it's like eating a crayon. I used to eat suet completely raw from the freezer, and that is because I had digestive issues with my chronic C. diff, the chronic C. diff infection. I had diarrhea for almost 2 years, and so adding fat would definitely give me loose stools, and adding as much fat as I needed to add for a season, I needed to be adding something in addition to the fat on the meat. So I used suet during that time. So if you're someone who is prone to diarrhea, loose stools, digestive issues, especially when you add fat, I would highly recommend trying raw suet. I love to get it from Billy Doe Meats, but I also consume freeze-dried suet from Grassland Nutrition. And this is going to be low histamine, and it's completely grass-fed. So those are the two companies that I love, and I have discount codes for both. Discount code for Billy Doe Meats is Tailored, and then discount code for Grassland Nutrition is Tailored10. You can find their products on Amazon as well. Another source of fat is going to be fat trimmings. You can get these from your local butcher sometimes. Sometimes Whole Foods will do it for you if you ask. But fat trimmings, a lot of people enjoy those, and these are for the people who don't generally get loose stools or are not bothered by rendered or liquefied or cooked fat. Because fat trimmings, you're going to want to fry them up crispy either in a cast iron pan or in the air fryer, and they taste delicious. That's a great source of fat. You could get lamb fat trimmings, you could get beef fat trimmings. Billy Doe Meats sells fat trimmings. Lots of places like that will sell fat trimmings. So those are great. You could eat those raw, but they taste better if they're fried crispy. Definitely. You could do tallow. Tallow is just rendered animal fat. So fat trimmings rendered down is just tallow. I think I just said that twice in a different way. Other sources of fat, cacao butter is the richest source of stearic acid, but it is a plant fat. So I don't want someone using this as their primary source of fat because it's not going to contain the vitamins or nutrients that animal fats do. Plant fats are energy sources. It's just fat. It's just calories. It's just energy. Animal fats have nutrients that help to heal and seal your gut, help to repair and fuel your mitochondria. Now, cacao butter contains stearic acid, high amounts of it, which is amazing for your mitochondria. Suet also contains stearic acid, which I've talked about. I think I have a short on it, on suet and stearic acid, so you can find that. Let's see, other sources of fat. Bone marrow is really delicious. There is maybe a small amount of protein in bone marrow, but it's mostly fat. If you do get bone marrow, I would highly recommend you do canoe cut. So the bone marrow is inside the bones, and it's kind of hard to access sometimes unless you have like a long spoon or a straw or something to push it through. But if you ask them to canoe cut your bone marrows, it just means you slice it down the middle. So it's like a canoe, and you can just scoop out the marrow with a spoon, and it's very easy to access. You can roast that, and it's delicious, and they actually do that at fancy restaurants now, or you can eat it raw. Raw bone marrow is delicious, in my opinion. It's very yummy. It's like meat butter. So that is a really good option. Those are the sources of fat that I recommend. I do not recommend olive oil. Even if I went to, the purest olive oil is still 30% linoleic acid, which can be inflammatory. So I stay away from it. Now, if I went to Greece, I would enjoy their olive oil. You know, if I went to Italy or Sicily or whatever, I would enjoy the olive oil. But here in America, our standards are really bad with olive oil and coffee. Coffee is moldy. Olive oil is cut with seed oils. I don't trust it. So unless you're paying a decent price for your olive oil, I don't think it's just olive oil. I think you're also getting seed oils, and olive oil is technically a seed oil itself. Technically, avocado oil, same thing. So yeah, those are my favorite fat sources. I hope that it helps someone out there. I will also add other ways to add fat. Hollandaise sauce, which you can make with just egg yolks and butter. That's all it is. You could do my custard recipe. I made a short on that. It is delicious. Every time I post that, I get way more traction than like other posts because people are like, what? You can do this with eggs? You can make lemon custard with just eggs and lemon juice? It's delicious, and you can add as much fat as you want because it's really easy to add butter or ghee or any type of fat you want really to those eggs, and they just hold the fat. Same with my brownie recipe, the ketovore brownie recipe. You can add fat to that batter and make it fatty. You can do it with just egg yolks and add fat. It'll be so fudgy and rich and dense. Or you can include the egg whites and not add fat, and it's more of a high protein thing, which is what I do now. I'm not adding a lot of extra fat like I used to. Now I eat a significant amount of fat. Now I'm going down like a rabbit trail, but anyways, so the custard recipe, hollandaise sauce. Another good way to add fat is the waffles. You can make waffles out of just egg yolks and butter. Put a bunch of them in a blender, blend it up together, put in a pinch of baking soda, put that in a waffle iron. You will have amazing waffles, and then you can even spread more butter on top of those, and those are delicious. So let me know your favorite ways to eat fat down below.